Do you move at the pace of a disabled sloth? Maybe you have a condition where you can't stop sprinting. In this video, I'm going to give you everything on how to be the best sprinter in all of HyperDash. But before we begin, if you haven't seen my first video on how to get insane at HyperDash, then be sure to check it out. I'll try to leave a link in the description. And that first video basically covers fire rate as well as how I'm going to structure the rest of the videos. Also, I am trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you could subscribe, it would mean the world to me. And as I mentioned in the first video, I give some more details on how I am going to structure these tutorial videos. So, as mentioned in the first video, sprinting falls under your mechanical skills. Now, in this video, I will not be covering dash management, as that will be a whole separate video because I think that is a whole skill in and of its own. And one last thing to mention, my sprint button for HyperDash is right grip, but I also go into more detail about my bindings in the first video. So, what the fuck is sprinting? What is the purpose of it? Well, as you can see in this demonstration video, sprinting essentially lets you increase your speeds with a little bit of consumption of dash. So when you first hit the sprint button, it will take a chunk away, and then from then on it will cause continuous draining until you are completely out of energy. However, the best use of sprinting in HyperDash isn't for covering distance, as you have, well, dashing, but the most widely used application for it is to help in gunfights, and this is known as sprint strafing. Now, if you ask me, sprint strafing should kind of be used as a last resort in a one-on-one gunfight, as dash dancing will always be way more successful than sprint strafing, as if you can effectively dash dance, you'll make your opponent sweat more than a dyslexic on countdown. But in more kind of cramped areas and longer range engagements, sprint strafing is definitely the better choice. Good example of this is Health Room in Canyon. Now, you can still dash dance in this room, but the first floor is a lot more cramped than the ground floor, so sprint strafing could be a viable strat. And again, the ground floor is a good example because you do have that length between bottom dash and shotgun corner. And another good example is the cart pusher. If they're being attacked, they're going to try to get as much push time as possible, so they are likely to sprint strafe on the cart. Because, well, if you jump off cart, not only are you not pushing it, but it also makes you look weak and pathetic. Okay, so there are three main ways to sprint strafe, or kind of three groundworks that you can do. There's left to right sprint strafing, or wiggle strafing. There is circle strafing. And finally, there's figure of 8 strafing. Now, like I said, these should be a base to build your sprint strafing, as the most expensive sprint strafers are the unpredictable ones. If you sprint strafe the same way each time and become predictable, you might as well stand still. Now, how do you go about doing your sprint strafing and making it unpredictable is up to you. So be sure to experiment. So, wiggle strafing is just going left to right essentially, and this is a good method if you don't keep it too tight, as if you keep it too tight, your hitbox is changing too much, and that's the whole point of sprint strafing. Then there is circular strafing, which is, well, in a circle. And then, of course, there is figure of 8 strafing, which is, well, a figure of 8. But the most effective method is being unpredictable and being random with all of these. I personally use a blend of all three combined with IRL movement to make it as difficult as possible and to shift my hitbox as much as possible, but that takes some practice. Now, as I said, you need to do a mix of everything I mentioned. All three methods, IRL movement, randomized, being tight, being wide, you need to mix it all together in order to be as effective as possible. Cool, with that covered, I'm going to quickly give some quick fire methods to help with your sprint strafing. As mentioned earlier, combine IRL movement with your strafing. Use cover such as walls and rails. Combine strafing with dropping off surfaces. Good example is launchpad triangle health. And if available, do it over a rail, as this makes your hitbox even more unpredictable. So that was a quick fire tutorial on how to best approach sprint strafing. As you can see, it's definitely a skill that is easy to learn but hard to master, but I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. But real quick, how can you counter sprint strafing? Well, there is the option of this, but if you want to remain and don't want to go scorched earth, there is another option. If their movement is predictable, tight, follows the same pattern, just kind of shoot in the middle of the path. You know, if they're doing a very tight circle or wiggle, just kind of shoot down the middle and you'll be sure to hit most of your shots. Whatever you do, do not try and chase them with your guns, as you'll hit nothing due to latency, and all that will be left is the player's shadow. And the golden rule to counter most things in HyperDash to survive is to remove the hyper. Just dash. This forces your opponent to turn and readjust, which is going to take a lot longer than if you just dash and turn around quickly. 9 times out of 10, you will have more energy than someone who is immediately using sprint strafing, so use that to your advantage. One of two things will happen. Either they continue to sprint strafe as you're dash dancing and they run out of dash and you're able to kill them, or they will also engage in dash dancing. But like I said, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have more dash due to them sprint strafing, as sprinting, when it's unregulated, takes up a lot of energy. And that will do. I really appreciate you guys watching this, and I appreciate any and all support shown, and all the support that's been shown lately with all the subscribers, the likes, the views. It hasn't gone unnoticed. It honestly means the world, and I can't thank you enough. Again, if you could subscribe, it would make my day, and I'll hopefully see you in a future video. Subscribe. Also, apologies for some of the stuttering. I am the dyslexic on Countdown. I've exposed myself.